It's important to keep in mind that only in the middle of the 19th century do the cities we now live in begin to be built. And cities of the kind we now live in are being built all over the world. We begin to see cities larger than any person can know, cities with vast grids of streets, cities where thousands and thousands of people live pressed into small areas. If I say to you, what are the elements of a city? You may say, tall buildings. And indeed, in the middle of the 19th century, the first 4, 5, and 6-story buildings were beginning to be constructed. New ideas about how to give buildings permanence, to fireproof them, and to make them sanitary and suitable for lots of workers and lots of residents were beginning to take hold. And Walt Whitman was the son of a carpenter, and one of the things he did in his youth was he built these buildings. Walt Whitman indeed came of age during one of the great building booms in New York. And so as we read him, we'll be reading the work of a poet who watches a city come into being, his self-consciousness about the city enhanced by the change he sees all around him. Cities, though, are not just tall buildings. 19th century cities are increasingly, as I've said, places so large that modes of mass transportation have to be developed. Whitman, like other writers around the world, think of Dickens, think of Dostoevsky, is describing a world where citizens move from mode of transportation to mode of transportation. Take ferries from one part of the city crossing, say, a river daily. Until the 19th century, no one took a ferry daily in order to get to work. And then, say, picking up a horse car, an omnibus, in which one would mingle with citizens of all kinds. Whitman lives in a city, moreover, where commerce is exploding. He lives in a maritime city where goods are coming in from all over the world and coming in as well from the South, where goods are being manufactured and where the explosion of print is making it possible for goods to be advertised. And so there is an atmosphere in the 19th century city of goods and material objects for sale. And so it's this city Whitman writes about is crowded and colorful and full of substance and texture. And it's worth pausing just for a moment to contrast this with the kinds of material, the actual thematic matter of poets like Whitman's predecessors, like James Russell Lowell or Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who were still writing about, mythological characters or addressing their attention to reflections on objects of nature, trees, sunsets. Now, these were contemporary people, contemporary poets, and yet it took Walt Whitman to begin getting ferries, omnibuses, horse cars, half-completed buildings in process of going up into his poetry. The 19th century city about which Whitman wrote and in which he operated was a place, and we're now used to this, where work and leisure flow into each other on every block. This is a world where there are buskers everywhere, where People ride through the metropolitan parks for recreation, where children are playing with hoops and balls, even as only feet from them, workmen return to their work sites. That interpenetration of labor, of commerce, and of leisure, that sense that there is no division between the workplace and the recreational space, and that the street is itself a zone where all of these activities go on at one time. That is all reflected in Whitman's work, and it's stimulating to him. It begins to turn any workday into an event, right? You're just walking, you're just commuting, or you're just on your way to the printing office, and what a feast of images, what a concert of sounds, what vivid tableaus of fellow citizens you see before you, all crowded in. It's as though your world were a show, and with hundreds and hundreds of extras on hand. Just to continue a bit, Whitman's world, Whitman's urban world, is one where all the institutions of civilization and of civic life are rearing the tall facades of the buildings, of the courts, of the jails, of the tombs, are stage sets for one's life. The fountains that bring clean water to the city of New York also sparkle magnificently in the sun. And again, there is this mixture or blending or interpenetration of spectacle and function. And that fountain, that New York fountain, really epitomizes what I'm saying here. It's there so that we don't get cholera, and yet our eyes are drawn to its gush and its brilliant, sparkling beauty.